My name is Ankur Patel. I'm the Director of Advancement at HUA, and our special guest today is the President of Hindu University of America, Sri Kalyan Vishwanathan, and our subject is Graduate Studies at HUA. And since 2019, we have grown and developed a university with a focus on advanced studies. We have so many different programs that are so important to the Hindu community, and we're going to get into those higher levels here in today's webinar. If you haven't yet, please put in the chat where you are zooming in from. I am in Los Angeles. We got Sanat Kumar from Andhra Pradesh. I think Kalyanji is in Dallas. We got Dr. Rao from Tamil Nadu. We've got David from Miami Beach in Florida. We got Vaibhavji from Rancho Cordova. William Fairchild from Massachusetts. Mutyamji from, well, you could put in the chat where you're zooming in from, but yes, hello, glad to have you on. Shiv Jindalji from Ottawa, great. Chitaranjanji from Columbus, Ohio. Shubhashriji from Bangalore, great. Sanjeevji from Hyderabad. Shivaji from Houston, Texas. Nice. We have almost 35 people with us interested in graduate studies. I'm glad to see that we have this kind of interest and engagement today. And so our webinar, we're going to get into the details about our graduate programs. And one of the things that we often hear is, do you have to choose between graduate level Hindu studies and going to work or your ongoing commitments? And we don't think so at Hindu University of America, because we've redesigned and restructured our graduate program and many of our programs so that you can, a student, an individual, anyone can dig deeply into Sanatan Dharma systematically in the topics that you're interested in while staying engaged in your current line of work, your family responsibilities, whatever it is that you do on your time. And so the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies and the Doctor of Hindu Studies are both structured to enable students to become an expert on Hinduism, but also to apply Hindu thought in practical and meaningful ways. So you may also uncover career alternatives. That's part of what we're trying to build here, a Hindu ecosystem that takes this knowledge and wisdom and applies it in our everyday lives in society. And so in this webinar, President Kalyan Vishwanathan is going to discuss some compelling reasons for you to pursue Hindu studies at HUA. We're going to take your questions, of course. We're going to get into some details, and glad to have you with us today. Let me give Kalyanji a brief introduction. If you haven't yet, please put in the chat where you're zooming in from, and I can give you a quick little shout out. Did anybody else drop in the chat? My chat window's somewhere else. I'll find it in a second. So with that, Kalyanji is our leader at Hindu University of America. He's has so many different experiences that led him here. He was the president of Dharma Civilization Foundation. He was the founder and president of the Sanatana Dharma Foundation in Dallas, Texas, back in 2007. He had a 21-year association with Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati, founder of the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam. He himself, Kalyanji, had a long career, successful career in IT, and he's using his experience, his background to help us at Hindu University and lead the way. It's really his vision, his determination, his diligence that has brought us to where we are and why we are building this university, as he likes to say, that will last 1,000 years for the Hindu community. And before I give it to Kalyanji, we have some more people dropping in the chat where they are joining in from. We've got Patakji from Bihar. We've got Rajanaji from Telangana. We got Ajitji from Kolhapur, Dilipji from Maryland, Chiryaji from Sarasota, Balaji Balayar from Sugarland, Texas, Nita from Mumbai, and Dr. Jena from Tamil Nadu. Lots of Indian folks from India. We usually have a lot of Indian folks, but we have a lot of participation from India. Glad to see that there is an interest in Hindu studies in India. And that's one of the things that we keep on seeing. Why is it Hindu University of America that's leading the way on this? Whatever the reasons are, we are, and we're glad to be leading the way. And so with that, let me hand it to Kalyanji to get us started on today's webinar.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ankur. A very warm welcome to everybody who's attending today. I'd like to begin by, first of all, recognizing that Hindu studies did not really have a space to grow in India for a long time. Certainly since independence from British in 1947, and for many, many centuries before that, the universities of India, where there should have been a space for higher learning, higher education on Hinduism, Hindu studies, Dharma studies, etc., had disappeared, had faded away particularly during the Islamic invasions of India, when many universities were ransacked, massive amounts of numbers of libraries and books were burnt, and literally scholars were massacred and killed and so on. And ever since the decline of higher learning during the Islamic period, Hindus have not had a credible, legitimate space to engage in university level higher education, higher learning in Hindu studies. That's a fact. Now, after 1947, for whatever reason, the framers of the Indian Constitution undermined the space of Hinduism, Hindu studies, especially education in Hinduism. And they put certain clauses into the Indian Constitution that inhibited the emergence of Hindu studies in India. So therefore, it did not emerge. And en masse, Hindus went into science, technology, medicine, secular subjects and disciplines. And whatever there was by way of deep, authentic study of Hinduism got marginalized. And when I say marginalized, what I mean by that is it got sort of placed in the margins of society, in the ashrams, gurukulams, in hermitages, in yoga centers, up in the mountains, in the Himalayas, in the various retreats dotting the countryside. But in the mainstream academia, that is the universities of modern India, such as, for example, the University of Calcutta, the University of Delhi, University of Bombay, University of Madras, and Jawaharlal Nehru University, the IITs, the IIMs, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and you name it, the majority of the prestigious educational institutions of India avoided Hindu studies as though it was an untouchable subject, literally speaking, a field that should not be touched. That prejudice has resulted in a situation today where the majority of the people who are presented in the international space as experts on Hinduism, experts on the study of Hinduism, the study of India, the study of South Asia, are outsiders to the Hindu world. So they stand outside the Hindu world and they look in. And they are looking from within their own paradigms in which they are situated. And so the discourse that we find emerging in the public square of the world, okay? So I'm going to call it the public square of the world. Now, what do I mean by the public square of the world? Well, today it's Wikipedia, it's ChatGPT, it is encyclopedia around the world, it is Hollywood, it is policy making around the world, it is the discourse about Hindus, Hinduism, Hindutva, etc. in the mainstream media, such as the Washington Post, the New York Times, the BBC, the Guardian, the Economist, And of course, in India, the Times of India, the Indian Express, the Hindustan Times, the Hindu, uh, famously. And if you look at all these institutions that constitute the public square, the discourse about Hinduism is pretty negative. It's pretty negative. It is often filled with misunderstanding, misrepresentations, and sometimes very open, undisguised hostility towards Hinduism. A lot of it stems from the academia, and Hindus have not had a credible space where we could prepare our own scholars, scholars who are so steeped and so knowledgeable, who have done so much research and work within the domain of Hindu studies, that when they speak in the public square, their voices are given a certain measure of credibility and respect. And because we've not had a space to prepare such scholars, we have not prepared such scholars. Okay. So that's the background in which I want to speak today about the graduate programs in Hindu studies. Even in India, there is a university called the Banaras Hindu University, which emerged in the early 1900s, 1914 to be exact. It was situated and developed by the great Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya. Regardless of his intentions for that university, what really happened was after 1947, even the Banaras Hindu University got predominantly secularized. In other words, the dominant view of that era, the Nehruvian era, the post-Nehruvian era in India, was that India must progress, must move forward, must develop away from Hinduism. It must move beyond Hinduism. It must transcend Hinduism. That we must really develop a post-Hindu India, where Hinduism is relegated to the ancient history of India and deemed as no longer relevant, as obsolete, as outdated, as certainly part of the archive of India, the archival experience, historical experience of India. But certainly that only belonged in the museum and no longer in the present, and certainly not in the future. That was unfortunately the sentiment that created the conditions in India in which Hindu studies never took root, never emerged, was never nourished, never funded, and therefore we are here where we are today. At the same time, the area studies programs in the US, the South Asian studies, the religious studies programs all over the world, they did take up the deep study of Hinduism, very serious study of Hinduism. And these programs got situated in Oxford University, in Cambridge University, in Haileybury College, before that in Harvard, in Yale, in Columbia University, in Berkeley, in UC Austin, and many other mainstream universities in the West. And what you find is a certain skewed, unbalanced narrative about Hinduism that has become today the mainstream story about Hinduism. That's the challenge against which we are developing the Hindu studies programs at Hindu University of America. Okay, now that's my little preamble, and I'm going to go through a whole bunch of slides now to give you a quick sense of the process we went through and the outcome that we produced. So, feel free to ask me questions in the Q&A box. Okay, I will pick up questions to answer. in the Q&A box. All right. So graduate programs in Hindu studies. See, at the very outset, one of the things we contemplated on was what were the core competencies that we wanted to produce, or we wanted to enable, that we wanted to inspire in our graduate students. And here is a list of core competencies. Number one, content mastery and lifelong learning. Students, out of taking part in our graduate programs, will demonstrate mastery of the content and methodologies of their discipline, while taking responsibility for their continued learning and growth beyond the program or degree. In other words, Hinduism is very, very vast, and the program will leave you at a certain level of expertise and content mastery, and then it'll open up a whole world of learning and development and research that the student will have to pursue on their own for the rest of their life. Number two, critical inquiry, research, and writing. Use skills of critical inquiry, research, and writing to pursue and evaluate knowledge, to pursue knowledge, to evaluate knowledge, to produce knowledge as well. And this is a gap in our Hindu community, where when it comes to Hindu studies, we've not enabled our people, the Hindu community, to engage in research, writing, and publication in a way that is of a recognizable international standard. And this is a very important competency that we wish to develop in our students. Number three, pluralism, dialogue, and the pursuit of epistemic justice. Appreciate pluralism, understand the nature, causes, and impact of epistemic injustice, and engage in generative dialogue and skillful action towards epistemic justice. It's a very important word, epistemic justice. And it involves the right of self-representation. Who gets to speak for Hinduism? Who is really the expert on Hinduism? How do we determine that, right? And how do you pursue epistemic justice, in the sense of the justice around representation of Hinduism in the public square? Number four, professional presentation, communication, and collaboration. Students will demonstrate effective presentation, communication, collaboration skills towards professional growth and success. Number five, innovation and service leadership. Students of the graduate programs at HUA will embrace innovation and a model of leadership that is committed to serving the greater good. And this is very important. It's been placed here thoughtfully, because we don't have a ready-made ecosystem today that will absorb the graduates of the Hindu studies programs at HUA into well-paying jobs, professional opportunities, career paths, and so on. Not yet. We don't have that yet. So for a certain period of time, our graduates will have to be extremely innovative and provide a certain kind of service leadership that could not only enable them to express themselves as scholars and experts on Hinduism, but also serve the greater good in the public square and also make a decent living. That's an important challenge. We somehow have to meet that challenge. So in beginning our program redesign, as we embarked on our accreditation process, we went about creating a 360-degree program review. Okay, so we had some graduate level student focus groups, and lots of academic committee discussions. We got design input from core faculty in our graduate programs. We studied the accreditation guidelines and standards, and we also looked at comparisons, program comparisons. In other words, we compared our program designs with many other peer programs in Jewish studies, in Christian studies, in religious studies in general, and so on. And we identified a number of challenges in our program design. Program flow, the quarter system was really did not work. Semester system preferred. Students wanted more support in writing. They wanted assessment and feedback to improve formal program level advisement, reliability in course offerings in terms of scheduling, program learning outcomes, and moving away from content-centered programs to a student-centered design. Okay, so these focus groups were all centered on the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies. The Master of Arts in Hindu Studies. We did the same thing with the doctoral program, the professional doctorate in Hindu Studies. By the way, we moved away from the Doctor of Philosophy program to the professional doctorate in Hindu Studies on the advice of our accreditation agency, which is called the Distance Education Accreditation Commission. So again, we went through the same process with graduate student focus groups, community leader focus groups, design input from core faculty, accreditation guidelines and standards and program comparisons. And here we recognize the value of peer institutional study, the interdisciplinary nature of the doctoral program, the applied nature of the doctoral degree, and certain kinds of research involving ethnography and qualitative research, which will be very important in this program. The degree must be both robust and extremely customizable for each graduate student, the need for advisement. And we also recognize the DHS, the Doctor of Hindu Studies program, is a field building degree. In other words, it will build a whole new field that does not exist today. The DHS is naturally aligned with significant portions of the institutional goals, outcomes, and learning objectives of Hindu University of America as a whole. For the master's degree, we came up with 5 design principles. The master's degree in Hindu Studies is both a self-contained degree, meaning you can finish the master's and be done. It's a self-contained degree. And a common basis for students seeking to advance in their studies towards an application-oriented doctoral program or a research-oriented doctoral program. Okay, and it's not necessary that the student should pursue this doctoral program at HUA. They could pursue it in some other university, but the MA will prepare them for future engagement in a doctoral program. The master's degree will establish a solid foundation in Hinduism. Students will discover the coherence and continuity of Hindu thought across its various texts, traditions, and practices, and even across time, historical time. Students will be introduced to Orientalist and Indological scholarship on Hinduism and the consequent academic representations of Hinduism, which the Hindu community today finds to be very problematic. Okay, so that is an important commitment of the institution, HUA. And in the master's program, students will just get introduced to the Orientalist and Indological scholarship. Students will begin to examine contemporary challenges that face humanity as a whole, humanity as a whole, not just the Hindu community, and the earth, meaning all living beings on this planet, through a Hindu lens. And lastly, the program will reflect a student-centered design that keeps in view the progress that the student is making towards achieving the program learning outcomes at all times through well-defined PLOs, a formal advisory program, and a clear assessment strategy. Okay, so these are the 5 design principles we developed for the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies program. Similarly, for the Doctor of Hindu Studies, we came up with 5 design principles. The DHS program, the Doctor of Hindu Studies, builds on the solid foundations in Hinduism developed in the Master of Arts program, integrating advanced academic scholarship with its practical application in non-academic institutional spaces. This is very, very important. The concern here is, how do our graduates who have completed their Doctor of Hindu Studies program move on into spaces of practical application in particularly in non-academic institutional space, such as what? Such as think tanks, for example, such as human rights organizations, such as interfaith institutions, such as museums, cultural associations, societies, government service, such as alternative medicine service, research and delivery, and so on and so forth. Conflict resolution, peace building. You can, there's a number of spaces that we can imagine which are not necessarily academic, but they allow the Hindu studies graduates with a DHS degree to move into non-academic institutional spaces naturally and easily. This is one of the principles of the DHS program. Our flexible design will foster field building, encouraging innovative interdisciplinary work at the junctions of Hinduism and the liberal arts, social sciences, and the humanities, aiming to address contemporary challenges facing humanity and the earth. Okay, so this is intersectional. It is not merely engaging in the Hindu world per se, but at the intersection of Hinduism and contemporary disciplines in the social sciences, humanities, and the liberal arts. Number 3, the program will explore diverse research methods as part of an ethical, indigenous research agenda that enables the decolonization of knowledge on Hinduism and Hindus. Very critical. Most of the research methods that universities espouse today have been developed in the West. They are products of the Western research university and its development historically over the last 200, 300 years. There are no comparable indigenous research methods that are Hindu centered and grounded in Hindu thought. They need to be developed yet. Okay, so this is an important criteria. Number 4, the program will study the critical challenges facing Hindu communities globally, including physical and epistemic violence, of which there is a lot, unfortunately. And so we want our graduate students to really get interested in these kinds of subjects, as researchers, as scholars, as spokespersons, and do so courageously. Number 5, guided by robust advisement, the program will be highly individualized, affording wide scope for a variety of student interests, and also partnerships with diverse institutions. See, we want this one program, the Doctor of Hindu Studies program, to cater to a variety of student interests. For example, students may be interested in just plain research and teaching. That's a normal academic careers. They may be interested in making movies, participating in the modern media environments. They may be interested in, epistemic justice, or, more social justice. They may be interested in pursuing disciplines around mitigating injustice and violence and so on. They may be interested in law. They may want to study legal, constitutional law and other forms of law for its sensitivity towards Hinduism and Hindus, for example. They may be interested in music and dance and the performing arts, of which is very plentiful in the Hindu world. They could be interested in education, just education at the K through 12 level, and want to participate in developing curricula for students in mandirs, in schools, high schools, and so on. These are just a few examples. Okay, there is an endless variety of possibilities for developing individualized programs for our students, so that we can cover a very large scope within the framework of a single, extremely flexible program design. Okay, so these are the design principles for the doctorate in Hindu Studies, Doctor of Hindu Studies program. So the program learning outcomes, these are called PLOs. Through the MA in Hindu Studies program, students will be able to. So this is, in other words, this is a promise of the Master of Arts program in Hindu Studies. Students will be able to, one, articulate a comprehensive understanding of Hinduism. Two, communicate the coherence and continuity inherent in Hinduism's diverse expressions. Three, demonstrate a basic knowledge of Orientalist and Indological scholarship on Hinduism. Four, analyze the impact of Western thought on the representation of Hinduism. Five, examine contemporary challenges through a Hindu dharmic lens. Okay, what we're saying is the MA in Hindu Studies program will enable students to be able to do all of these five things. So these are the five program learning outcomes that students who take part in the MA program can expect. Now, the doctoral program in Hindu Studies, the professional doctorate, also has five program learning outcomes. They are: one, research, articulate, and address critical issues faced by the Hindu community. Okay, so that's a focus on the Hindus, the Hindu community by and large around the world, the whole diaspora. Number two, develop models of stewardship of Hinduism and Hindu institutions. Two. Number three, analyze the impacts of Western interventions on Hindu society. Very important. Okay, there are these interventions have been going on for centuries now, and they're continuing to happen today. Number four, create effective approaches towards advancing epistemic justice in an intellectual and scholarly manner. Number five, propose interdisciplinary approaches towards resolving challenges facing humanity. And when I say challenges facing humanity, it means all of humanity. It includes all the kinds of challenges we face today, whether it is climate change, global warming, whether it is extreme polarization of our politics, whether it's income inequality and wealth inequality, whether it's conflict and war and violence, whether it is the stability of the families and communities in which we live, whether it's the healthcare crisis, mental health, behavioral health, depression, and you name it. We believe that our graduates, once they are immersed in the Hindu paradigm, will be able to and must be able to propose interdisciplinary approaches towards resolving challenges facing humanity, of course, from a Hindu perspective. It goes without saying. So the MAs in Hindu Studies, the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies program, unfolds Hinduism across three main dimensions. And they are the lived cultural traditions, the varied spiritual practices, and primary textual sources. Okay, broadly, these are the three anchor points of Hinduism in the world today. Now, we have lots and lots of primary textual sources. We have lots and lots of lived cultural traditions, and we have lots and lots of varieties of spiritual practices. All of these constitute the Hindu world. So when a student recognizes and appreciates the congruity and coherence of these three dimensions across their varied and diverse expressions, this constitutes a sound foundational understanding of Hinduism. This foundation equips students to understand Western scholarship on Hinduism, which exhibits a propensity to describe Hinduism as inherently incoherent and contradictory, or hierarchical and oppressive. It also serves as a solid basis to explore the application of Hinduism to contemporary challenges. Okay, so there is a particular skew here in the definition of the MA in Hindu Studies program, and it's very important, very deliberate, it's very carefully thought out. And so this is the scope and focus of the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies. The Doctor of Hindu Studies program unfolds Hinduism across three main dimensions. And these are: what are the challenges we face? What are the challenges we face? Who is the we? The we could be constituted as Hindus, the Hindu community, could also be constituted as humanity in general. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's open in this regard. How can we understand these challenges? Not just the challenges, their root causes, their long history of development, why they are occurring today like this, the way they are, and how can we meet these challenges? How can we respond to these challenges? Okay, so when a student articulates the relevance of Hindu thought and practice to the specific challenges faced by the Hindu community and by contemporary humanity, and is empowered to create innovative approaches centered on Hindu thought to address them, this constitutes mastery. This enables students to move beyond the conceptual limitations of Orientalist and Indological scholarship, which frames Hinduism as a relic of the past, and engage creatively with our shared, globally integrated future with confidence and clarity. Okay, so this is the Doctor of Hindu Studies program. So the MA in Hindu Studies unfolds over 36 credit hours. That's 12 semester credits courses. It follows a semester system. It includes a master's thesis for honors, for graduating with honors. There is a sharp focus on writing, formal advisement, and diverse faculty. The scope and sequence of the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies. So the 36 credit hours are divided into the following distributions. Students are required to take at least 4 courses in the Hindu Studies Foundations area for 12 credit hours, 2 courses in academic preparation, mostly around writing, 1 course in independent practice study, we are calling this field-based learning, 1 course in texts and traditions, 1 course in yoga studies, 2 courses in Hinduism and the West, and 1 course in applications of Hindu thought. And then a master's thesis, which doesn't earn any credit, but it'll earn the student the opportunity to graduate with honors from the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies program. A quick look at the courses. So Hindu Studies Foundations, if you look at Hindu Studies Foundation as an area, it is further broken up into Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta, and Darshanas. And students have to take 1 course each from each of these 4 areas. In the Vedas, there is no choice, the Vedic origins of Hinduism. The Bhagavad Gita, Introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. In Vedanta, students can take any one of these 3 courses. They can take Freedom and Reality Advaita Vedanta, they can take Advaita, Visishta Advaita, and Dvaita, 3 perspectives, or they can take the Upanishadic dialogues and overview. Any one of these courses will fulfill the requirement of the student having to take at least 1 course in the Vedanta distribution. Darshanas, students again can take any one of these 2, Shad Darshanas, Introduction to Hindu Philosophy, or Reason and Revelation in Hindu Philosophy, any one of those 2 courses. Academic preparation, again, there is a basic course, Introduction to Writing in the Humanities. It's an absolutely mandatory course. Anybody who wants to finish the MA program successfully must complete that Introduction to Writing in the Humanities. Then in the advanced area, they can take in 1 of 2 courses, Writing in the Humanities 2, or Research and Writing Preparatory Seminar, either one of these. Under Hinduism and the West, students had to take 1 or 2 courses. There is 1 course listed today under Colonialism and Post-Colonialism, Foundations of Hindu Culture. And in the area of History of Ideas, Western Thought, there are 2 courses from which the student may choose any one. The Bhagavad Gita and the West, or Readings in Modern Hinduism. This is the predominantly centered on the Hindu reform movements of the late 19th and 20th centuries. Under Texts and Traditions, we have 3 courses. Students are required to take exactly 1 out of these 3. And this includes Mahabharata, from beginning to end, Mahabharata, Bhakti and Contemporary Hinduism, the Bhagavata Purana, any one of these 3. And under Yoga Studies, we have 3 courses, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Yoga Darshana, Sankhya Darshana. Students have to take at least 1 out of these 3. And Applications of Hindu Thought, we have 2 courses, Arthashastra and Hinduism and Conflict Resolution. Students have to take 1 out of these 2. So when they do this, they will complete the program. There's 1 more course called Field-Based Learning, which is designed to provide students with rich opportunities to observe and immerse in the practice and expression of knowledge in a dharmic learning environment, acquire an enhanced understanding of the lived cultural traditions, primary textual sources, and varied spiritual practices of Hinduism from experts and gurus and acharyas and so on. Make connections between their HUA coursework and their field study, and reconnect or make stronger connections with their personal ancestral lineage. If you're a student in the Madhva lineage, you can go back and spend time in a Madhva ashram. If a student is from the Ramakrishna lineage, you can go to Belur Mutt and spend the better part of a semester in that Belur Mutt, and so on. This is field-based learning. So there are some design criteria for the field-based learning courses. The institution must be connected to a specific sampradaya or tradition. There must be an on-site learning component, an extended learning period, and students must be able to make connections and enhance their understanding of Hinduism through this activity. They will design this. It's very customizable. It's designed with their advisor, and it will culminate in a final paper. Okay, that is the master's. 36 semester credit hours can be done in 2 years flat, full time. But for part-time students, like most of us are, you can take much longer. You can take 5 years to finish this. It doesn't matter. Take one course at a time, maybe two, if you can make it possible. Complete the Master of Arts in Hindu Studies. Beyond the Masters, we have the Professional Doctorate Program in Hindu Studies. It's called the Doctor of Hindu Studies. This involves 60 credit hours or 20 courses, semester system. It includes a doctoral study course. I mean, you have to complete a doctoral study. It's not a course. It's a kind of a dissertation like thing. There's a lot of focus on research methods and applied Hindu studies, robust advisement, and individualized and interdisciplinary program. So the 60 credits are broken out like this. Research methods is 9 credits. Students have to complete 3 courses. Core Hindu studies, 4 courses, 12 credits. Intersectional studies, 4 courses, 12 credits. And specialization, 18 credits, 6 courses. And doctoral study coursework, 9 credits, 3 courses. This is the distribution. Now, if you look at the research methods, 3 courses. We are situating a set of courses here: Introduction to Research Methods, Methods in the Study of Religion, Research and Writing, Ethnographic Field Research, Indigenous Research Methodologies, Methods of Analysis and Critical Intelligence, and so on. So students must take any 3 out of these 6 courses, which are available today. Doctoral study courses, all 3. There is a seminar, and then there are 2 semesters of advisement. There's 1 year of intense advisement from the graduate student advisor. Specialization is 6 courses. This is free. This is completely open. Students can take any approved course from the HUA graduate curriculum as part of specialization. They can even take approved courses from an institution outside of HUA. They can also do independent study on their own, but only to the extent of 2 courses, at most 6 credits. In terms of core Hindu studies, there's a lot of choice here. Students must do only 4 courses. There are choices like Dharma Shastras, Brahma Sutras, Philosophy of Sri Aurobindo, any approved course from the MA program in Hindu Studies. There's a whole bunch of Sanskrit studies courses, Vedic Science Foundations, Nyaya Vaisesika, Mimamsa, Vedic Sciences, Ayurveda, Jyotisha, Yoga, Vedanta. There's really a lot of choices here. And Texts and Traditions, you get the 4 Mahabharata courses from beginning to end: Dicing in Exile, the War Books, Dharma and Darshana, the Bhagavata Purana. We expect to add a lot more courses here, but today we have 5. And then under Yoga, we have the same 3: Yoga Darshana, Sankhya Darshana, and Yoga Sutra, Patanjali. So only 4 courses are required from this group. Then intersectional studies, again only 4, and we have a very, very rich variety to choose from. Under post-colonial Hindu studies, we have Decolonizing the Hindu Condition, James Mill and the Rights of the Liberal Left in Britain, Post-colonial Theory, Anti-colonialism and Post-colonialism, Sociological Consequences of British Rule in India, Impacting Caste and Hierarchy in India, Orientalism and Hinduism, Contesting Neo-Hinduism, Critical Issues in Hindu Studies, Philosophical Foundations of Orientalism, Philosophy of Science and Hinduism. That's one group. The second group is History and Method, Readings in Modern Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita in the West, Race and Hindu Reform, History of German Indology, Aryanism and Indology, the Philosophy of Race, Readings in Western Philosophy, Philosophy of History, Historicism and its Crisis, Mahabharata Textual Criticism, and humanities and the university. So these are a group of courses under history and method. And in the conflict and peace studies, we have introduction to conflict and peace studies, Gandhian philosophy, human rights, a Vedanta perspective, and international politics, a Vedanta perspective. So this is a group of courses under intersection studies, and students are required to take only 4 out of this rather large group of courses. The professional doctorate will culminate in a doctoral study, which is an original scholarly paper that examines a real world challenge that relates to a specific applied area of Hindu studies and offers a practical solution. So this is the applied dimension of the doctoral program. The goal of the doctoral study is to demonstrate students' command of the program learning outcomes through the design, execution, and presentation of original research. And this includes data gathering, analysis. It could be textual, it could be archival, but it could be also ethnographic, it could be surveys, it could be questionnaires, it could be field research, lots of ways of doing research. And we want to prepare students for the doctoral study through the coursework in research methods, writing, and the doctoral study seminar. The benchmarks of the doctoral study are, first of all, the student will have to pass a qualifying exam. They must receive a passing score in the exam. They must complete the doctoral study seminar and submit their doctoral study proposals and defend it successfully in front of a committee. They must propose their research question, design and plan their methodology of research. They're presented in front of the doctoral research committee, and then they will finally collect data, analyze, and write up their findings. It's about 100 pages, maybe 70 to 100 pages. And that's all that's required for the doctoral program in Hindu studies. Remember, this is not the PhD. It's not the Doctor of Philosophy in Hindu studies. That's a different program, and that's coming later on. So we have consolidated all our current activities into the doctoral program in Hindu studies, which is a professional doctoral degree. And finally, there will be a doctoral defense. Students will present their research findings to their committee. Successful defense is a requirement to graduate from the program for the grant of the degree. Of course, all doctoral students are required to pass a program administered Sanskrit proficiency exam. Okay, students who have advanced degrees in Sanskrit and they can show that they have passed an exam of equivalent or higher level can apply for an exemption from this requirement, but students must pass the Sanskrit proficiency exam prior to their being able to earn their doctoral degree and even prior to their doctoral defense. Students whose particular doctoral work requires a higher level skill in Sanskrit or any other language for that matter will be required by the program to study and demonstrate the appropriate level of fluency. This will be discussed one-on-one with their advisors and so on and so forth. Now, ideally, if you want to study the representations of Hinduism in the Greek tradition, you have to learn Greek. If you want to study how Hindu texts, traditions, and knowledge systems migrated into the Islamic world, you'll have to learn Arabic or Persian and study the text in those languages, etc., etc. And that concludes my slide deck. Okay, and now I am ready to take some questions from all of you. Let's see now. Please put your questions in the Q&A box, okay? All right. Okay, Vedic match. That's not a question. Okay. Temple of Faith comments, lots of comments. Jeez, that's just an unbelievable number of comments here. Yeah, Vaibhav Gupta. Is there a timeline for the completion of the Doctor of Hindu Studies? Yeah, that's a great question. Okay. See, today we are being very, very liberal. Okay, we recognize that completing a master's and a doctoral degree for our community who by and large is also engaged in a, professional occupations and how to earn a living and so on, is not easy. So therefore, the maximum time allocated to complete the master's degree is 5 years, and the maximum time allocated for completing the doctoral program in Hindu studies is 10 years. Okay, so you really have 15 years. That's a lot of time. Of course, I don't think people will take that long, because once you get into it, you will on your own want to accelerate the program. Okay, let me take a few more questions. Vedic math. Okay. Can the courses from the certificate program in Hindu studies be applied to the master's program? Unfortunately, no, because the graduate level courses are at a higher level. They are more demanding, they are more extensive, they require different kinds of evaluation criteria. There's often a lot of writing involved. So the certificate program in Hindu studies is really at a much lower level, you can say undergraduate level. Okay, next question. Does one need to complete a master's level in order to go to the doctoral level studies? Okay, great question. If a person already has a master's degree in a related discipline, and when I say related discipline, what I mean is it could be, say you have a master's in Sanskrit, MA in Sanskrit, or let's say you have an MA in philosophy, and you've done a lot of work on Hindu philosophy or Indian philosophy. Or if you have a, say, master's in sociology, and you've done a lot of work on studying Hindu society, etc., it is possible to get directly into the doctoral program in Hindu studies. Okay, and you'll get a waiver as far as the master's requirement is concerned. However, we do recognize that for the most part, our students are not coming from the liberal arts, social sciences, and humanities. They're coming from more typical science, engineering, technology, medicine, etc. For them, they would have to complete the master's degree first and then move to the doctoral program. Okay, so if you have an electrical engineering degree or a mechanical engineering degree, etc., you have to first finish the MA and then go to the doctoral program. Okay, can a graduate in a Doctor of Hindu Studies get admitted into a Doctor of Philosophy program? Yeah, this is a great question. My answer is yes. There can be a very easy and elegant transition from one program to the other. But keep in mind, it's too premature for me to say that, because the Doctor of Philosophy program design has not yet been finalized, and the extra requirements between the DHS and the PhD are also yet to be clearly laid out. Okay. Having said that, the Doctor of Philosophy is going to require a dissertation, a theoretical dissertation that is advancing the frontiers of knowledge in some meaningful way. Okay, it's not a practical application-oriented doctoral degree. It is a theoretical, knowledge-oriented PhD, whose purpose is to advance knowledge in a particular field of study. Shiraya Dharma says, can you speak to the obscurations of Hinduism as related to yugas? Not really. I am not going to take up individual subjects on Hindu-related subjects, but I'll say one thing. See, yuga is a unit of time, and there are varieties of time frames that are brought under the definition of yugas. So you cannot operate with yuga as a single unit of time. And within Hinduism, there are many, many different representations of yugas. Is there a bachelor's level of courses and exam for new entrant youth in US? No, we do not have a bachelor's degree right now, but we do have a continuing education division, which offers certificate programs, and ideally, that's the place where students can begin. Okay, Right, let me see. What are the costs? Okay, the costs. All right. Ankur, you want to, what you're saying you want to answer this question, Ankur? What are the costs? You're on mute.
Well, the master's degree is $7,200, right?
No, please don't make mistakes. Okay, sorry. See, the cost at the moment is, we have a cost per credit hour. Okay, 1 credit hour at the graduate level is $1,500. Okay, so what does that mean? That means no, sorry, I'm making a mistake. 1 credit hour at the graduate level is $500. So a 3 credit hour course is $1,500. Okay, so 36 credit hours is typically one half of it, which is $18,000 for the master's program. Okay, however, there are payment plans, and if you pay in full, you'll get a big discount on that. And if you pay by year, you'll get a little bit less of a discount, and so on. So that's the approximate cost, $18,000 for the MA, with discounts built in for various kinds of payment plans. And similarly for the doctoral program in Hindu studies, 60 credit hours, $500 a credit hour, that is $30,000. But again, you have payment plans that can bring the costs as far down as $24,000. So those are the approximate costs of the program. We're happy to share all that in person with you if you're interested. Okay, what are the texts for the courses? Well, each faculty member will prescribe certain texts and will work with various texts. So that's a course by course phenomenon. Okay, so okay, next question. Where are we here? How that relates? What is this? How that relates to the unique perspective of HUA and its mission? Yeah, see, the institutional learning objectives are derived from HUA's mission and vision. And from the institutional learning objectives, learning outcomes are derived the program learning outcomes. And from the program learning outcomes are derived the course learning outcomes for each and every individual course. So there is a clear line of sight between the institutional mission, which is HUA's perspective, and the individual courses that are being offered by HUA. Okay, is Sanskrit teaching offered? Absolutely. And Sanskrit is offered at the continuing education level. It's also offered at the master's level. There's a whole nother program, called the Master of Arts in Sanskrit. That's a separate conversation. I'm not including it here. So you can look that up also. There's extensive opportunity to become familiar and develop expertise in Sanskrit. Okay, Devajyoti Jaina, cost, I've addressed it. Are these degrees recognized? Yeah, totally. They are recognized degrees. They are legitimate degrees. They have been validated by the state of Florida. Okay, and we are currently in the process of securing accreditation. We've already applied, and once the accreditation is successful, they will be not just recognized, they will also be accredited. That accreditation is in process as we speak. Okay, Jayaramanji is saying, can you discuss why anyone would want to join HUA versus say Columbia or Harvard? Yeah, that's a terrific question. So if you go to Columbia or Harvard, what you will get is primarily a Western academic view of Hinduism, which will essentially be a historicized version of Hinduism. Which will go something like this. In the beginning, there were primitive people who engaged in nature worship, and they developed the Vedas. Then they evolved, they became thoughtful, and they developed the Upanishads. And then they moved on and became somewhat, they developed all kinds of polytheistic traditions, and they developed the Puranas. and on and on. Okay, so it'll be primarily a historicized version of Hinduism and a Western version of Hinduism. So, whereas at HUA, you will get the account of Hinduism from the standpoint of the scholar practitioner who's located within the world of Hinduism or Hindu sampradayas, Hindu traditions, Hindu texts, Hindu culture, and Hindu civilization, and so on. That's the big difference between the two. And that's why people should join HUA instead of going to Harvard and Columbia. Of course, you can go to Harvard and Columbia, and if you come out not confused, well, kudos to you. We'll greatly recognize you for not getting brainwashed at Harvard and Columbia, but we recommend you come to HUA. Are there scholarship opportunities? Yes, there are some work study scholarship opportunities. You can please write to us about that. Work study as in you work for HUA, earn a little scholarship, and do something useful in support of HUA. Okay, that's all the questions I'm seeing in the Q&A box. If there are any others, please do put your questions here. All right, great. So how to
let
apply?
me ask the audience a quick question. Here is a quick poll. Just let us know if you're interested in the MA in Hindu Studies program, the Doctor of Hindu Studies program, and we have a lot of certificate programs. So if that high level commitment isn't for you, let us know, and we'll reach out accordingly with follow-up and details. So that should be a poll that just popped up. Please let us know. You have to answer all 3 questions. Thank you. We're getting some answers for that, Gleanji. I don't think too many people put questions in the chat. Got them anyway.
So one more thing I'd like to say is if you want to apply, if you're interested and you want to apply, please go to the website, go to the admissions submenu and go to apply, and there's an application form, and just fill it out and get in, and we can get you started right away. And the courses in the fall semester are about to begin within 10 days. So you can actually start immediately by taking one course at least to get a taste of the master's and the doctoral programs in Hindu studies. Okay, and even if you're mildly interested, you should simply take a course just to get a feel for the doctoral program and the master's program. Any other questions that I haven't answered? Of course, there is someone really beseeching that we should include Vedic math. Yeah, Vedic math, we can look at it, sir. Please, Ankur, can you get his contacts and get him get into a conversation with him separately? Okay.
Yeah.
Somala Sanjeeva, how you do? All right, everybody. I think that is it for today. Do you want to share the results of the poll, Ankur?
Sure. All right. If you haven't filled it out, take a quick second, minimize, maximize, fill it out. Anybody else? Person. This is what this audience is responding.
Maybe in the future, this is the winner. Maybe in the future. All right, everybody. I think we should probably close on that note. Okay, I want to say thank you all. Namaste to all of you. Thank you so much, and we really hope that you liked this webinar, and If you choose to participate, we'll see you in a graduate program very soon. Okay. Namaste, everybody. Thank you. Namaste.